Lightning, for as long as humans have walked the earth, has been a force of nature that stirs both awe and fear. Its streaks across the sky show the raw, untamable might of the natural world. In ancient times, it was seen as divine. Today, it is no less mesmerizing, though it's been heavily researched. Yet, even now, lightning retains its unpredictability. It's a distant phenomenon, a spectacle to be observed from the safety of shelter. But for one Italian city in the summer of 1769, lightning would become something far more deadly. Brescia, a historic city in the heart of Lombardy, sits between hills that stretched between the Alps. It is a city steeped in centuries of trade, culture, and religion. From its grand cathedrals to its bustling markets, Brescia had long been a place of life and activity. Merchants mingled with nobles, clergy crossed paths with common folk, and the hum of daily life flowed through its narrow streets. Among its many buildings was the modest church of San Nazaro, which, for most, blended into the fabric of the city like countless other places of worship. However, the church of San Nazaro had taken on a hidden role, one that few citizens thought about, if they even knew at all. In times of war, Europe's cities had no choice but to prepare for defense, and Brescia was no different. The church had become a storage site for a large quantity of gunpowder hidden within its vaults. The stockpile was vast and ready for use in a conflict that might arise at any time, a precaution in an era where violence often loomed just beyond the horizon. The people of Brescia went about their daily routines on August 18, 1769, as they always did. It was a hot and stifling summer day, with the sky above the city beginning to darken by mid-afternoon. Thunderstorms were common in the region during this time of year, and few paid much attention as heavy clouds rolled in from the mountains. The air, once still and thick, began to stir as a breeze picked up, carrying the scent of rain. As evening fell, the storm that had been brewing over Brescia took on a more ominous character. The winds grew stronger, tugging at the windows and shutters of homes. Thunder rumbled closer, and soon the first jagged flashes of lightning lit up the sky. The storm escalated, transforming from a typical summer tempest into something far more powerful and intense than the citizens had anticipated. Those who ventured outside to secure their belongings hurried indoors as the sky grew darker, the flashes of lightning growing ever more frequent. Amid the storm's fury, a single event would alter the city's fate forever. Brescia had survived many storms before, and for most, this evening would have been no different. Yet within the city, an unseen danger lay in wait. Stored deep within the church of San Nazaro, an immense cache of gunpowder sat idle, prepared for a future that now seemed uncertain. Few people gave much thought to this hidden stockpile, nor the risks that came with it. In their minds, it was simply a necessary precaution, a tool for defense that would never be needed until it was. But as the storm intensified and lightning struck the ground with increasing frequency, something changed. As dawn broke over the horizon, the storm had long since passed. Yet for Brescia, the city itself seemed to have been altered in ways no one could have predicted. In the aftermath, people wandered the streets, confused and shaken. The city had been alive with the sound of the storm, but now it lay still, strangely quiet. Debris littered the streets, buildings stood damaged, and thick smoke clung into the air. Panic soon spread as the true scale of what had occurred began to take shape. Stories whispered from house to house, rumors of destruction far beyond anything the city had known. It wasn't long before the heart of the city, the area around the Church of San Nazaro, became the focus of everyone's attention. Something had happened here, something terrible, but no one was quite sure how it all unfolded. The events of that day would go down in history as one of Italy's greatest tragedies. Brescia, a city of trade and culture, had been shattered. Thousands of lives were lost, entire streets had been leveled, and flames had consumed large parts of the city in the hours after the storm. Survivors, many dazed and wounded, emerged from the wreckage, unable to grasp the full scale of what had befallen them. Buildings that had stood for centuries now lay in ruins, their foundation reduced to rubble. Days passed before the full details emerged. The church of San Nazaro, which had once housed the city's precious stores of gunpowder, was no more. A single strike of lightning, in a moment of nature's unpredictability, had ignited the powder, setting off a blast that devastated Brescia's very heart. Nearly 3,000 people had perished in the explosion, their lives taken in an instant by a force they could have never foreseen. Brescia's recovery was slow, and the weight of the tragedy was felt for generations. The city was rebuilt, but the memory of that day lingered in the minds of those who survived. The Church of San Nazaro was never rebuilt, and its absence became a symbol of the loss and the lessons learned from storing such a dangerous material within the heart of the city. The tragedy also prompted broader changes across Italy and Europe. The risks of storing gunpowder in densely populated areas was now too great to ignore. Other cities took note and moved their own stockpiles away from civilian areas, ensuring that this would never happen to them. If you're eating something, perhaps skipping this story would not be that bad of an idea. On a warm summer afternoon in Chicago, August 8, 2004, passengers aboard the Chicago's Little Lady River tour boat were eagerly soaking in the sights of the city's iconic skyline. The Chicago Architecture Foundation's tours had always been popular in the Windy City, offering both locals and tourists a scenic view of its historic buildings. The passengers aboard this particular boat, seated comfortably on the open roof deck, likely expected nothing more than an enjoyable, peaceful afternoon. However, something unimaginable was about to unfold, a bizarre and infamous moment in Chicago's history that would simply be known as Poopgate. The day began like any other for the 120 passengers aboard the sightseeing vessel. The boat lazily drifted along the Chicago River as the tour guide narrated fascinating facts about the buildings that stretched above them. As they approached the Kinsey Street Bridge, a familiar landmark, the group would have looked up at the impressive metal structure, unaware that this bridge would soon become the setting for a story that would go down in infamy. Above them, on the road that ran over the bridge, one of the many tour buses transporting the popular Dave Matthews Band crew back and forth from their hotel was on the move. The band had been in Chicago for a 2-night concert at the Alpine Valley Music Theater, and their violinist Boyd Tinsley's bus, driven by a man named Stephen Wohl, was crossing the bridge. While the bustling city below remained unaware, Wohl made a fateful decision that would forever change the course of the day. In the quiet solitude of the bus, Wohl toggled a switch, unleashing an unimaginable disaster. From the Blackwater tank came a deluge, 800 pounds of human waste cascading through the gates of the Kinsey Street Bridge. The sewage fell directly onto the unsuspecting passengers of the boat below. The scene that followed was nothing short of chaotic. Brownish-yellow liquid splattered down from the bridge, drenching the passengers seated on the upper deck of Chicago's Little Lady. Some were struck in the face, others on their clothes. The smell hit them before they could comprehend what had happened. A foul, overwhelming stench that made some gag, others retch. Those on board scrambled for cover, but it was too late. Roughly 2/3 of the passengers were already soaked. Among the passengers were tourists of all ages, the elderly, young children, a pregnant woman, even a small infant. The waste clung to them, dripping from their hair, seeping into their clothes, and staining their personal belongings. As the reality of what had occurred set in, panic ensued. Some cried out in shock while others began vomiting from the putrid odor. The once jovial atmosphere of the boat tour had transformed into a nightmare in mere moments. The boat immediately turned back to the dock where the passengers, traumatized and disgusted, were offered refunds. 5 passengers were sent to the Northwestern Memorial Hospital for testing, though fortunately, no one suffered long-term physical health effects from the incident. For a brief time, the source of the deluge remained a mystery. The Chicago Police Department launched an investigation, yet initially, the dumping wasn't considered a crime. However, the gravity of the situation demanded answers. On August 9, a key clue surfaced. A witness had recorded the license plate of the offending bus. This led authorities to Jerry Fitzpatrick, one of the drivers of the Dave Matthews Band. Fitzpatrick, however, denied any involvement. He claimed that he had parked at the hotel at the time and even had the police inspect the bus's nearly full septic tank as evidence. The mystery deepened until surveillance footage from a nearby fitness center, the East Bank Club, captured the culprit. It was not Fitzpatrick but Stephen Wohl, who had been driving Boyd Tinsley's bus across the Kinsey Street Bridge at precisely the time of the dumping. In March 2005, Wohl pleaded guilty to reckless conduct and discharging contaminants. He was fined $10,000, sentenced to 150 hours of community service, and placed on 18 months probation. The Dave Matthews Band, in response, took swift action to make amends. They paid $200,000 in a legal settlement to fund environmental protection efforts and donated an additional $100,000 to groups dedicated to safeguarding the Chicago River and surrounding areas. The band also vowed to document the dumping of their bus's septic tanks from that point forward.